All right. Hello, everyone. We are live on Facebook. And if you saw the title, we are talking about Christspiracy. All right. And it is a new documentary that just came out yesterday, I believe. And Azaria is here with me. And we both saw the film yesterday. And we wanted to talk a little bit about the film and our thoughts. There may be spoilers potentially. So if you haven't watched the film yet and you don't want to be spoiled, this may not be for you. I can't promise there won't be spoilers, but I think there may be. So we're going to share a little bit of our thoughts on our film, as well as Azaria's story, as well as a little bit of the solutions of what we can do next. Because a lot of people that watch that film are probably thinking, oh my goodness, what the heck? I've been lied to my entire life and I need to make some changes. I need to align my actions with my beliefs, and now it's time to take action. And so we're going to talk about the action steps. And so Azaria has a really powerful story that she's going to share because it's very, very connected to the film. It's nearly identical to what she learned about what that's in the film that led her to her belief system now and the way that she eats now, which is really great. So let's start with just some general thoughts on the film. Azaria, you want to chat a little bit and maybe share some of your general thoughts?
Well, thank you, Kevin, for joining me today on this call. I'm really, really grateful for you. And yes, so we both saw Christspiracy yesterday. I really, really loved the movie. It was really, I think it was very impactful, and I think it'll be very eye-opening for most people that are not completely aware of what's really, truly been hidden uh, from humanity for centuries. The truth that has been hidden from us for so long is now just starting to come out and more, widely available for the masses. And so I really, yeah, I loved it. I thought it was great and pretty much confirmed everything, that God had been telling me since I became vegan in 2013. That God helped me to transition to veganism.
Yeah, definitely. I even remember sitting in the film when they were talking about like how dangerous it was to film it and talk about it, and thinking like, should I should I even be watching this? Like, wait, how is this allowed in this theater right now?
Right.
Like, I don't even feel like I should be allowed to watch this. It seems like
I kind of
hidden
I kind
behind the
of felt
scenes.
the same way, like, oh, maybe we're gonna be on some CIA list or of people to watch because they did get followed and their place was ransacked and they stole some data. What are the
The
memory
memory cards, which like the
cards?
whole, it's basically like holding your footage.
Exactly. And so we know that there's major interest and that are watching us. They're watching, what people are doing against the big agricultural companies, the big meat agriculture. They have millions and billions of dollars in power and political power, especially, that we really cannot compete with. Like the vegan movement is a grassroots movement based in, and morality and ethics and goodness and righteousness and kindness and love and those things, they're not based in money like these interests are. They're all uh, based in in creating a world for us that's not sustainable. That's all based in money. And so yeah, it's pretty scary in a way, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, the animals are suffering. They need people to speak. We need to give them voices. We are their voice, because we know we've been, like you've been in a slaughterhouse, you know what they're going through, the torture and the suffering.
Yeah, well, it's crazy. Like they were following them with like drones, because in the past, you might have whatever technology you had to follow people. But now there's all kinds of technology. You following people, it's like outright, like literally, here's the drone. You can see it. It's buzzing above your head, literally following you. It's like living in like a psyop.
Yeah.
And even like I mean briefly about slaughterhouse, like even filming inside a slaughterhouse is illegal. So you imagine it's illegal to film your food,
Yeah.
you know, and not just illegal, like, oh, you know, you get a slap on the wrist. You're labeled as a terrorist.
Yeah.
And not because you're actually hurting anyone, or not because you're harming, like distressing the animal or harming the humans, or it's because you're interfering with their profits. That's the reason. Like that's the only reason. It's
Yeah.
because if you do anything to slow down profits, like you could be labeled a terrorist. So that's really, you know, really crazy, and part of, you know, why people don't see it. Why are you not going to? And then it's like anything. The further away you see it, the less you see it, the less you think it's important, the less you think about it, the less, you know, whatever. But then there's a balance. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's like you can't just watch terror and horror all the time. You have to do something about it. You know, use it as motivation, use it as awareness, and use it as education. I think some people, I even saw people saying, I made a comment or a post
Uh-huh.
about the film, and some people are like, oh my gosh, I'm going to watch it, or I've watched it 3 times, I'm going to watch it 5 more times or something like that. In my mind, don't. Like,
Yeah.
what? Like, I can't even imagine watching that again. Like, I learned what I learned, and but the scenes of the cruelty is too much. Like, I already know that,
Yeah, me
you
too. I
know.
couldn't stop crying. And it's just like once for me, it was really heavy on my heart because you start to see, wow, it's not just the United States, with these slaughterhouses everywhere and all this destruction. It's all over the world. They showed India, and what they're doing over there and the animal cruelty and stuff over there. And it's just like, oh my gosh, this is a worldwide problem issue, and then it's just like, how do, and it's all based in lies. They pretty much proved, you know, what they proved. I don't know if we should give out everything about the movie, but spoiler alerts. Um, but pretty much it proves that people have been lied to, and they're causing animals suffering and pain and cruelty unnecessarily. It's all based in lies.
Yeah, I think the main factor, I mean, one of the activists said it, and it's what I say all the time. And he's like, do you drink dairy? Because they were helping the cows or whatever animals.
Yes.
And then she's like, no, I don't, because it's unnecessary. Like it does nothing for us and it's cruel. And like it's just that simple. And I like the first time I learned that, that's all I needed to know. Like I don't like I've learned a lot more since then, but like those two things is all I needed to know, you know, essentially. But a lot of other things helped, you know what I mean, along the way. Right. But let's get into really quick your story, if you
Yes.
don't mind, a little bit, share a little bit of your story and how you came to your decisions now and how it relates.
Well, of course, I was pretty much on a standard American diet. I was a paralegal back then, 15, 20 years ago. I was a paralegal, and it was just like the 9 to 5 grind, and so you got to go and go through the drive-throughs and pick up your food. I'd have all the fast foods, junk foods, Starbucks 2, 3 times a day. And so eventually that caught up to me. I started suffering anxiety attacks and all these things. And I didn't grow up in the church or anything like that. But once I started suffering, I like back then, I didn't know it was tied to the food, to what I was consuming. But so I told my aunt, and she had me go to church, and so I found God. That's when I found God in 2010. I found God, and then I started going to church for prayer, started feeling better. But I was still consuming the standard American diet, because when you go to church, they don't tell you, hey, change your diet. They don't talk about diet. They don't talk about health. Everybody was sick. Everybody was sick in church. I'd go to church and there was people suffering of cancers and diabetes and heart disease and all these things. And I'm like, what's going on? I started asking questions. I started asking God, like, God, what's going on? Why are all these people sick? Why is everybody sick? We're all suffering. I had my own issues, digestive issues and sleeping problems, and I was still suffering from, a lot of fear, debilitating fear and anxiety and stuff. Um,
Can I
and
share something really quick?
uh-huh.
Some people don't know because they might see you now, but if they see your before and after, like if you could just explain like you're a totally different person. Can you explain like a little bit of the weight and like a little bit of the difference there?
Yes, completely, completely. So I was totally overweight also, I was and my son was like 6 years old back then, and I didn't have the energy to run after him, and kids, are super energetic. He was very rambunctious, and very energetic, and I wanted the energy to run after him and to play with him, and I didn't have it because all the toxic foods, the fast foods and the junk foods, they were all draining my energy completely. So I'd get home from work and I didn't have any energy. I would just knock out and go to sleep. And it was just like the 9 to 5, get home, pick up my son, get home from work, go knock out, go to bed. And it was like, I wasn't enjoying life. And I'm like, God, I want the energy to be able to play with my son, run after him and everything. So and God led me to do a Daniel fast on January 11th of 2013. And because our church was going to do a fast, they were like, just pick whatever fast you want to start off the year in 2013 so that God can bless our year. And I was like, okay, well, I'll do a Daniel fast, where Daniel in the Bible was basically a vegan. All he ate was fruits, vegetables, and water. So I was like, okay, I can do that. I was going to do fruits, vegetables, and water for 40 days. And in 40 days, I started to transform. And I was like, wow, I was amazed because in 40 days, I lost 30 pounds. In 40 days, I started exercising. I started getting energy. I started feeling great. My wrinkles went away. And I looked in the mirror after 40 days and I told God, I said, God, why am I going to go back to feeling like crap, eating animal products, eating the fast foods and the junk foods if I feel great, I look great, and I didn't want to go back. And God was like, you don't have to go back. You don't have to go back to eating animal products. And I was like, what? And back then, I didn't know nothing about being vegan. I didn't know not one vegan. I didn't know it was possible to live without animal products. But God told me that it was and that I could stay, just eating fruits, vegetables, and water. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. So God helped me transition over to just staying vegan, just being vegan. And I felt great about the decision. And that's when God started speaking to me about, how they've been lying to us, for centuries. They manipulated the text, the teachings of Christ to incorporate, eating meat when God, Christ really didn't support that. But it was the Roman Empire that took over his teachings, and they're still in power today. So that's pretty much how I became vegan. And then and so I stayed vegan. And then after, being vegan, then I was looking up recipes on YouTube, and that's when I found Fully Raw Christina. And then I got connected with her. In Houston, she had a raw fully organic co-op, and I started volunteering at her co-op, and then that's when I learned more about the raw foods and the juicing and everything else.
Yeah, definitely. I think your story is definitely amazing and it's a really powerful story. And I think like even a lot of the like a lot of what you said like aligns with a lot of the stuff in the film.
Absolutely.
And like the Daniel fast, and they talk a lot about that and explain that. And that's really fascinating. And I thought of you too when I saw that. And
Awesome.
then
I've been talking about this for years, but nobody would listen. But thank God they made a film about it.
yeah, and even just like your story in general is so identical to mine from before, like kind of like how you looked before is kind of like how I felt before, and how
Yes, you
you
had a
used to
huge
eat.
transformation too.
How you used to eat is how I used to eat.
It's like
And
most of the population, you know?
yeah. And so it's so common, even like thinking about, like you said, I didn't even know vegan or anything like that. That's also really common too. Like, is this possible? Like, can anyone do this or anything like that? And I think that most people think that, right? And I had a little bit different experience with that, because only I think most people, like I said, do experience that. But the difference that I had is that my uncle was vegan for as long as I can remember. Like I think it's been like 60 years now.
Oh, so you knew somebody
I
that
knew
was vegan.
someone.
That's a big
Yeah.
advantage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I knew someone, right? But I still had it is an advantage. But I still had a disbelief still, still very heavy disbelief, right? And my uncle used to share.
Your face, and he's
Oh, sorry, you cut out for a second. What'd you say?
oh, so no, you said you were still in disbelief, even though you saw your uncle, he was probably really healthy and thriving and everything.
Why? But think about that, and also when you're younger, you don't know. Everyone's kind of healthy-ish when you're younger.
Yeah.
You start to see when they get older. You know what I mean? And I remember my dad. My dad committed suicide. His
Yeah,
brother.
I'm so sorry about that. That's
And when that was, I saw my uncle then, and I remember after the funeral, we were we were talking about whatever things or whatever, and I think I wasn't vegan then, or was thinking about that, or really it wasn't going through my mind or anything like that. And I think we're probably eating pizza or something like that.
mm,
And I remember my uncle, of course, wasn't like he doesn't even eat at restaurants.
wow.
He was the first extreme person I knew. And but he said, even I remember at that table, he used to always say, he's like on the first page of the Bible, it says not to eat animals. He used to always say that.
Wow.
and
That's the truth.
and you just are like, whatever, crazy uncle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
He
we're all
didn't go to
crazy
church. He
until
didn't go to
somebody.
church either or anything like that.
Oh, he
He,
didn't go to church?
no, look at this. So he's 60 years vegan or whatever, the oldest of the three brothers, lived the longest. He's still alive.
Wow.
He's my cousin David's dad. And you've
Oh,
seen David.
cool.
And so he works construction and he races motorcycles on the weekend. So he's
How
still
old is he?
healthy enough. And that's really hard. Have you ever raced? It's really physical. Motorcycles is very, very physical. It's way more physical than you think, even though you think it's
Mm-hmm.
pulling the gas. And anyways, it's really amazing to see, and his health, for longevity, because that's what people always talk about. Oh, well, you can't do it for a long time. Oh, well, after 10 years, that's the breaking point, and blah, 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 blah. All this nonsense, you know what I mean?
It is.
But you don't know what you don't know. You see experiences and you study people, whether it's someone which is an advantage or rare, right? But or you could look at other people you don't know. They've studied people. It's not like they haven't studied this. No one studied this. There's hundreds of studies of this. You know what I
Right?
mean? And so you could find the information, and find the evidence and find the proof, and then see it. And so a couple things like even like my cousin's never eaten meat in his entire life because he was born into a vegan family at first, right? They got divorced, right? So then that changed the eating dynamic, you know what I mean? And so they at least, I mean, well, I don't know, the oldest, my cousin David, he never ate meat. He basically stayed vegetarian. He did eat cheese or whatever.
Very.
He went
Mm-hmm.
vegetarian dairy, and then he went back to vegan, maybe 4 years ago or so because of me inspired. And now he's training to be a vegan bodybuilder. But it's always like
Awesome.
still like people are like, you need meat to gain muscle and you need, all these things. And it's like he's never ever even had it ever in his whole life. You know what I mean? And even they're like, oh well, people can't do it or whatever, populations and this and that. And it's like there are, they talk about India, but that's not all of India. There's a huge India is billions of people. Like India is like has like 20 different countries within itself. You know what I mean? So it's so different. You know what I mean? Kind of like America. It's so different from
Yeah.
Florida to the Pacific North Coast to New
Mhm.
York to San Diego. Like this is so different, right? So
Yeah.
anyway, India is known for the largest population of vegetarians that have never eaten meat. Like yeah, they eat dairy or whatever, but they've never eaten meat in their entire life. You know what I mean? And so, and there's populations of vegan population that you could find. And there's, the Adventist, Seventh Day Adventist, for
Seventh day,
example,
yes.
right? They've studied them. They're one of the most studied. They live in Loma Linda, California, for example. And so they're like a huge population, right? That's been studied. And so there's some things there, right? And you look at the information, like, and then like as far as the animals go, right? Like you're saying, I filmed inside slaughterhouse. Like as
Yeah.
far as the film goes, like the visual of the slaughterhouse, like that's how it is. Like that's how it is, and that's the reality. Like I've seen it. It's worse than what they can show. They cut out, if you notice, they were specifically cutting out like the
Yeah.
really bad parts, right? Like it's way worse than they can even show. It's worse than you can even imagine. And even the parts that they were going were not even that bad parts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's actually way worse. That's the other thing, is like it's worse than the parts that you see. It's like you have to really, really find like undercover hidden footage
Disgusting.
to find the actual truth, right?
Yeah.
And as far as Israel goes, there was an activist in Israel, and I was telling you, I worked alongside her, that activist that was in the film Tal Gilboa, and I was in Israel just coincidentally during their first Cube of Truth, where they were sharing the truth about the animals, and they were showing the realities of what they experience and what they go through. And she's a really incredible activist in Israel, is really unique because of their, I mean, a lot of things, what's going on in the news now,
Hmm.
all the stuff, that you might see there. I made a video called The Vegan Capital of the World, where I went there and shared some of my experience there. It's mostly about the restaurants, a lot about the restaurants, because that was like my mindset back then. Was like finding all the good vegan food.
Oh, awesome.
And
I bet it's delicious too out there.
it was crazy delicious. Like I couldn't believe it. They called it the vegan capital of the world at the time. I don't know what it is now, because Tel Aviv is the city,
Right.
and because they had like the most amount of restaurants and the most amount of options, like of any city, like per population or something like that.
Wow.
And it was wild how many they had. And part of it is like a lot
More
of
than LA,
it.
huh?
What?
More than LA.
Yeah, per person for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. And the size, because it's not as big of a city. And so, like, part of it is like, maybe activism, awareness, stuff like that, religious beliefs. There's all kinds of things that factor into it. But one of the things I found was the kosher belief, right? So, one of the beliefs that they have in kosher is that they will not eat meat and dairy together, is part of their belief, right? I don't know the exact reasons or about it, but that's what they practice there in
Oh
the
my
restaurants.
God.
So what was interesting is
Uh-huh.
they liked American food, like a lot of places, right? So they liked cheeseburgers, right? So they couldn't eat cheeseburgers. Like, so the way that they could eat cheeseburgers, they would eat vegan cheeseburgers. And I thought that was so interesting, that was a big factor of why they ate more cheeseburgers, is because they couldn't combine cheese
The
and
cheese
meat
with the meat.
together, but they could
Yeah.
if it was not from animals, right? For
Yeah.
kosher. And
Oh,
because of that, they created, really, actually to this day, I still think the best vegan cheese I ever had was there, made in Israel.
wow.
I think that's part of the reason. I think they're so addicted to it that they had to, I don't know, create
They
a
perfected it.
vegan version of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, and then another thing about the film is it covers almost all of the major religions, even like yoga, which I was surprised at, talking about
I
yoga.
was shocked. I couldn't believe all the monks. I was like, they're so hypocritical. How can they say that they're Buddhist monks and yet they're supporting, slaughter and killing of sentient beings? Like they don't align.
it almost seemed like their ethics were like, you seem so strong in your ethics, but then so
Yeah.
weak when you're around others or something like that. It's like so weird, right? And then like, but what was great that it covered them all because I didn't know that going in. I thought maybe it's just going to talk about Christianity or, but it covered almost every single major religion, which covers almost every single person in the world, which I think almost every single person, if you don't know what's going on, like you should watch it. If you already know, like if you really, really know and you're like, you're never gonna eat animals again, like I don't really think you need to see it personally. But if you don't know, I think you really should. And also it covers like if you notice all, I mean, they talk about it, but like in general, like all of the belief systems are like the start out, you know, as like the main foundation of like not harming others, not harming animals, you know, being kind, you know, and you know, it's just not practiced, right? Even though it's believed. And then that's the challenge that a lot of people have is that the hypocrisy, right? It's actually that was the first thing that you said, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you believe this and you preach this, but you practice this. And that's where it messes up people. And some people are like, oh, well, I'm not going to follow that religion because this is hypocritical or hypocritical or whatever. But the focus or the important thing is you as an individual, you as your choices, you as what are you going to do, what are your ethical, what are your guidelines, what are your morals, where are your ethics, where do you stand, and what are your daily choices, and do they align? Because that's what the most important thing is. Who cares what you say? Like you said in the film, who cares what all these, you know, these religious experts say? What are you doing? Like, why are you not following, you know, what you're preaching? And that's also a liberating thing, and you could talk about that too, is that you have control, because that knowing that you have control over your actions is also liberating, because some people feel the opposite of liberation sometimes, you know, because they feel like they're forced to be a certain way, right? Even in a religion, they feel like they're not liberated within the religion, you know. So anyways, yeah, I know you wanted to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it was really disconcerting for me to find out that even like the most religious leaders, you know, the Buddhist monks and the people that they showed in the movie, they're not even living in alignment with their own values. It's just like, what hope do we have for humanity to live in their own values, to live in alignment, you know, with their actions, their words, their values, to align them? You know, and it's just like, okay, the leaders have to be aligned first, right? The people, you know, the people follow their leaders. They follow what their leaders are doing. They're looking up to these spiritual leaders and they're like completely out of alignment with their values. And then it's just like, wow. And so everybody's pretty much in bondage to the system of cruelty, of violence and pain and suffering, because that's the energy. This, you know, we're talking about spirituality here. If these spiritual leaders don't understand spiritual laws, spiritual laws, you know, because they are spiritual laws, you know, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, pretty much is a golden rule. It's a pervasive golden rule across all religions. That's what ties us all together. Treat your neighbor as yourself, you know, love your neighbor as yourself. And all these, you know, these are spiritual laws that God put in place to help us learn, you know, how to treat others, how to, even animals. It applies to every living being. Animals have red blood just like we do. You know, they bleed red just like we do because we're related. We're family. You know, and so it's just like, okay, we need, if we are going to make impactful change in our world, if we're going to make an impact in our world, we have to live in alignment with our values and then help others do the same. You know, and so you know, you can watch the movie all day long, but if you're still going to go and eat animals, what good is it going to do you, you know? And so it's just like, okay, you have to just live in alignment with what you value. You know, what are your values in life?
Yeah, I think a word that comes to mind is empathy, and I think that that's where a lot of people lack.
Yeah.
And I think we're all born with it, and they show in the film, and they show, you've seen it in other places, whether you're a kid and someone's like, you're eating animals, or you need to harm this animal, and they don't want to do it.
Yeah.
It's natural, and it is natural. You have concerns. You're like, wait, you enjoy killing? You might grow up to be a psychopath. So
Exactly.
so Empathy is we're born with,
It's inherent.
and
Yeah.
we lose it over time, and we're taught, and it goes away, right? So you come back to it, and the way that I can imagine you come back to it, if you're talking about the animals and empathy and what it means, is imagine simply you being inside their body, like through their eyes. Imagine living their life. Like that's what empathy is imagine what it's like to be them. Just take a minute, think what it's like I said even before this call, whatever, imagine what it's like to be them. Like you're nervous, imagine what it's like to be them. The only reason I say it is not to like go imagine what animals go through for a minute and be traumatized. It's more perspective shift.
Yeah.
Shift the
Put
perspective.
yourself in their shoes.
Put yourself in their
Yeah.
shoes, their hooves for a minute, right? And
Yeah.
but if you really do that, like you truly do it, right? Not like, oh, I said I did it. That actually helps shift your perspective and gives you a deeper inside look into what's going on. And you could do that with other people as well, with people, right? Like what is going on inside them? You might know, you might ask the questions, hey, what are you feeling? Or what are you experiencing? Or I can see it seems like something's going on. You try to imagine, you're like, oh man, I can't. Oh, I have a headache. Oh, I remember when I had a headache too. Like you could feel it, because you've been there, right? And you have the empathy. And I think that's actually helps me a lot in the beginning. Like in the beginning, you might be addicted to things like cheese or whatever, like because they're real addicted things and chemicals in there. But in
Yeah.
the beginning, it helped me a lot. Yeah, I was sick and I wanted to get better, but sometimes people get better and they go back to eating animals, right? Or whatever. And so it's like what helped me the most was the empathy, right? And so when I see like a steak or whatever, or even a uncooked whatever on this store, like I see a mother that was taken from her family that wanted to live, right? I don't see like, oh, that ooh, that looks I'm hungry, right? And so like even if it's grass-fed organic dairy or whatever, like it's still the same thing. I see a mother that was taken from her baby
Uh-huh.
unnecessarily, and I know it's unnecessary because I'm here. We're here. We've been here without these things. No one needed that thing, right? It's unnecessary
Exactly.
in that way, right? And it's cruel because like what they do to the mother and the baby, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the empathy I want to share really quick, is that's why I created the empathy podcast. Like literally was like that imagination, is what it is putting yourself in their shoes and imagining what it's like. And we can cover this last thing, solutions, you want. So solution, I think, is the most important thing, right? Because like awareness is great and it's really good. And
Mm-hmm.
you need to start there, and belief is important. But then like your solutions and action steps, what are you going to do? Right, cool. You learned, you got the information, like what's next, right? And this is how I look at it for some things. Like let's say the film, right? The film at the end is solution. It had some solutions which are really great, right? In their mind, they said, get active, or some things, share the film, which are understandable things, right? You have a
Right.
new film, of course you want to share it. And yeah, definitely, watch the film, if we covered it, enough and you want to see it, right? And I think for you're brand new, like you never experienced this, you don't know nothing, definitely watch it. And it might be something that you get passionate about and you want to focus on, and that's great, right? But if you're someone that's already focusing, you're already doing something, you're already doing action, you're already taking action, you're already maybe an activist or you're nutritionist, you're helping animals in some way, you're helping the planet, you're helping humans, you're like doing your part, right? You're already doing your part. In my mind, the next thing, or what a lot of people, like what a lot of that film does, and a lot of films, the other films they made, like What the Hell, Cowspiracy, the other
Mm-hmm.
films they made, is in my mind, it teaches you why to go vegan, or why to not eat animals, or why it's unhealthy, or why it's bad for the environment, or why it's unethical, which is great. And you should learn. I think if you learn those three, it's really powerful. Like it's hard to ever go back, right? If you
Right.
learn those three. However, the next step I think is how. And that's the first thing that people think, that like they get it in their mind, they understand, they're like, okay, I get it. I know
Right.
why I shouldn't do this, but now how do I do it? What do I do? What do I eat? What plants do I eat? What foods do I eat? Do I eat this? Do I eat that? Should I eat this? Is this okay? Is this not okay? There's so many more questions that need to
Absolutely.
be answered after you understand that it's wrong to eat animals and what to do and what to eat next, right? And I think that that's what I want to share a little bit is like, and you could share a little bit too, is like, what are some action steps, what to do once you make the awareness, you make the connection, you make the decision, like how to eat.
How to eat. Yes, definitely. And there's a world of possibilities, because there's so many abundance of fruits and vegetables in our world today. We are so, so blessed with so many plant foods just readily available everywhere, pretty much, But the most powerful thing for me, I think, that people can do is to liberate themselves, because really we're coming into a time of liberation, of freedom. Freedom for the animals means freedom for the people, and freedom for the people means freedom for the animals, because everybody's in bondage. The animals are kept in bondage so that the people that consume them are also kept in bondage to a toxic system that will keep them, in doctors' offices and in hospitals and, pharmaceuticals and doctors' bills and all this. That whole entire system is in bondage to the animals, the animal agriculture. Okay, they're all in bed together. We have to understand this. They are linked together. They go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. Okay, and so the process of liberation really it begins with an internal cleansing. Internal cleansing, our parasite cleanse, the Purium green juices, the parasite cleanse, and the biomedic, for the glyphosate and the pesticides and herbicides and all these things that people are consuming, and all the toxic foods, the fast foods, the junk foods, and everything. They're all tied together. And so it's a process of liberation by cleansing our cells, our cellular structure of these things that keep us in bondage to the hospital systems, the pharmaceuticals, and all those things, and the animal products. Because if we don't go through the parasite cleanse and all the cleansing and everything, people will have those parasites drawing them to keep eating animals. And so, the animal products, the meats and everything, they create artificial, little bacteria or parasites in our gut that keep people craving meat, that keep people craving, animal products. And so the process of liberation has to start there, pretty much.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I wish I learned a lot of this stuff in the beginning when I first switched because my mindset was, oh, I'll just eat how I was eating, but just vegan. Like I'll just switch it, like just eat the vegan options. And that helped for some things because we know how toxic animal products are.
Mm-hmm.
Because so getting that out is great, right?
Yeah,
But like totally being clean and eating real food and eating like how we should be eating, right, wasn't there yet. And it wasn't ideal yet. And it took some time, to learn and figure it out. It even took me from studying nutrition to learning all these things to going to all kinds of different places and countries and interviewing so many different people, like I said on the podcast, to learn, you know, how to eat better, right? How to eat effectively to feel the best, and it just makes sense in a way, like logically, like foods that grow in the ground, and fruits and vegetables, right? And eating those, right? And it seems simple, drinking clean water, whatever, right? Like the basics seems obvious, right? But the problem is doing that.
yeah,
Like you're bombarded everywhere with propaganda
everywhere.
everywhere. Every major city in the US, all the places you travel to with all these different options, and then you like try to find the clean fruits and vegetables. Like where you might go to Apple in a convention or go get an apple in a conventional store, it might have 12 different chemicals on it. It might be late
True.
sprayed with a peel, to preserve it for longer, right? To make it last longer on the shelf. There's so many of these challenges, and that's where like the foods that are grown that we recommend to people, they're grown in private organic farms, free from toxins, free from chemicals, tested, numerous times for any heavy metals, toxins, glyphosate, any of those things. that matters and it adds up over time, and from 5 years in for me, is like completely transformational, right? To like disease it from in my body to out of my body, right? To saying goodbye to autoimmune disease, and so like for me, that's how people should start. Why would you not start the right way?
Right.
Why you could start however the hell you want. I mean, you do whatever you want, you know what I mean? As long as you're not harming animals. But
All
why
right.
not eat the best plants? If you know plants are ideal, clean soil is ideal, why not find the best that you can if you're able to? And then it's
Right.
like, okay, well, it's not in my store. Okay, well, it's not in my grocery store. Oh, it's not in my local whatever. We'll get it shipped to you right to your house.
It's the easiest,
Azaria,
the
call
best.
Azaria, call me, say, how do I get this shipped to my house, these clean foods? Like, that's what you need to do.
Absolutely. Another component I feel to make the transition successful to be being vegan and to staying vegan and not harming animals, not going back to eating meat is the community. Is to be plugged into a community that will support you through the process. And then that's something else that we offer, our Purium community of Kind Human Tribe, where we're all beautiful, kind, loving people. And so we're here to support people that want to make that transition that is so important at this time.
No, you're right. Like, I think if I would have done it alone, if I would have just tried to help myself all by myself with all the environment around me, with every fast food place nearby me, and every, all the family members and all the old friends and all the whatever, like, I don't know if I could have been strong enough on my own to
Yeah,
do it. I really needed a community like ours that is literally, I've been in hundreds of communities from all types of different vegan communities in this community. I've never been in a more supportive, kind, loving community like this
I
that
agree.
really is focused on helping us thrive and be the best we can in all areas of life, not just food, not just not eating animals, not just like your finances, your budget, your lifestyle, your family, your kids, you're just caring about everything, you know?
Right? Absolutely. And so that's a very, very helpful component, I feel, for people because, you know, whenever I became vegan, I was the only one, my entire family, my circle, my church, everybody in my church thought I was crazy for staying vegan, and it's just like you look around for validation to the people around you, they're not going to validate you. They're not going to validate you going vegan. Okay, I never got it.
They're, if anything, they're going to criticize you. They're going to mock
Exactly.
you.
They
They're going to
mock,
treat
they make
you.
fun of
They're going
you.
to treat you worse than they treat all the other, with the minorities. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They get treated.
Mhm.
You get treated worse.
I got treated so
You get
bad.
treated worse than the minorities, which is like that's why you need to come together because it's hard
Absolutely.
doing it alone.
Yeah.
Doing good things in this world is not easy. And
It's,
in the past, it used to be like you'd be a rebel to go do some. I mean, now you are a rebel to do something good. In the
yeah.
past, to be rebellious to smoking cigarettes and doing drugs and eating junk
Right.
food, you're a rebel. Like now that you're just that's normal. Like
That's
being a
normal.
rebel, being a rebel's that like
Our
you and me.
society is toxic. If you're toxic, you're normal. You're good, but if you're trying to get clean, if you're trying to eat clean, if you want to, drink green juice, oh, you're weird, like we don't want anything to do with you. Get away from us, and all this stuff. But this is why, I'm like, I was so grateful, that back then when I became vegan, I found Fully Raw Christina and, the whole co-op and everything. That definitely helped me because I didn't have anybody else supporting me or helping me through the process. And now, with the superfoods, of course, our online supportive community. I love the Kind Human Tribe. And I also wanted to announce that I have a lot going along with the community. I have the Worthy I have a book club that I'm hosting, and I want to invite everybody to join. This is also comes with a free workbook. And this is a book by Jamie Kern Lima, and this is to help us believe that we are worthy of everything good, to level up our worthiness and being able to get healthier and more loving and more kind and make a bigger impact in our world.
I love that. And that's so important because I think a lot of the world teaches us that, or we believe that, or someone says that, like, You might be younger and someone says, oh, you're stupid and you're ugly and you're fat and you're this and you're that, and you believe it your whole life
People can be
all
so
the way.
mean. People
Yeah.
can be so mean, especially kids nowadays. They just, and especially on social media, so much bullying and stuff that the kids go through. And it's just like, it tears up people's confidence and esteem, self-esteem and everything. And then that lowers what people believe that they're worthy of receiving in life. And then they get stuck in terrible conditions of life.
Yeah, definitely. And like, and just to wrap it up, like on solutions, and like I always want, like, part of the only reason I even created social media in the beginning, like before any social media, like when it was whatever, it was people were using it, like I didn't care about it. I didn't understand the point. I
Mm.
knew it was like important for some businesses or whatever to promote or whatever. Like I kind of got that made sense, you know. But like in general, like I maybe I had like a random picture here and there of a sunset or a food pic like once every 6 months or something. But it wasn't until I decided, like, for social media, I thought about the animals and I
Yeah.
said, what if they had a social media? And
Mm,
what would they say? And what would they share to convince people to stop harming them, like to leave
that's
them alone,
powerful.
you know? And that's the reason it was created. And that's still the underlying, like, still the main, like, reason or factor kind of thing. You know?
Hmm.
And I mean, it's evolved over time and things have shifted, and it's like a little bit more about me or whatever now than it was. But in general, like that's the root of the start of it, you know, and still the
Right.
foundation. And when
The
I think
problem is
about,
that most of society, they're not focused on the animals, like especially meat eaters, like their heart is pretty much turned off. And so they don't really feel for the animals. They're more like, what's in it for me? Like they want to know, what am I going to get out of it? You know?
and that's exactly what I noticed, right? And
Mhm.
so I think that people make a decision, like whatever decision they make to not eat animals, and sometimes they're like, I'm gonna do it for my health, or I'm gonna do it for the environment, or I'm gonna do it for the animals or whatever. And the reality is some people decide to give up, right, for whatever reason, right? And my mindset is like that you can do it longevity and you can do it long term. And my focus is to help also people do it long term. And that was one of the things I wanted to focus on in the beginning, when I wanted to help people, was helping people to do it long term, right?
Right.
And to maintain and consistent. Because I saw people saying they would make a video that was like, I'm no longer vegan or something like that, and be like, that's
That's
really weird.
horrible.
I would be
Right.
like, that's really weird. It doesn't make any sense. Like, what do you mean you don't? It's a it's a belief system,
Yeah.
and you either have it or you don't. And I don't think you stop and you start. You know what I mean? I think everyone actually already believes it and already
Yeah.
inherently is, and everyone is already born vegan completely. And
I think we
I
are.
think you're 100% vegan. I think you get away from it, right? And then you may come back to it. You may never come back to it, but it's how you're born and it's the nature state. It's not like it's a, but you can believe in it, and your actions can go according to that or not according to that, right? And so someone that is plant-based, right, or in a plant-based diet, like that's different,
Mhm.
right? I don't believe there is a vegan diet. I think that's a word that doesn't, those things don't make sense. They're not the same. They don't go aligned. It's like humane slaughter. Doesn't it does those two words don't
Yeah.
go together to me. Vegan and diet doesn't go together to me. So every time I see that, you know what I mean? And so that's just one thing. But then as far as the decision that someone makes, and they're like, I did it for the animals, right? But then they give up later. So why would that person give up? And they're like, I did it for my health, and then they give up later, right, or whatever. And you're like, well,
That
what
just
happened
tells
there,
me that
right?
they caved into societal norms,
It could be.
Not
The
that
thing
they
is,
gave up on their values, because I'm sure their values are still there. And most people are like, I love animals, but they're hurting them, like because they're so caught up in the society's norms, like what's normal in society is to eat animals. And so they're not strong enough. You really have to be a strong person, strong in your values, strong in who you believe you are in order to stick with them.
Yeah. And so, but that's what I noticed. And you ask those questions, right? It's like someone gives up and you're like, why? Yeah. You ask questions, why this, why that, and everyone has different
4 weeks.
reasons. You're right. Society, my
Yeah,
friend said this. I've seen people say my doctor said this. I've seen people say my mom said this. I've seen people say, oh, I saw a documentary or I saw an interview or I saw someone give up. There's just so many reasons why. But this is what I think helps the most is when you learn so many reasons to do it, it's really, really hard to go back. Like in my mind, like I learned, like I feel like there's trillions of reasons, like why not to, right? And they far outweigh all the reasons of why the pros, to me, or
absolutely.
whatever the pros are. And what is really the pro? Taste? It tastes nice, like, and that's it. Like there's no other pro, right? If you say nutrients or whatever nutrients, like you can get nutrients elsewhere or whatever, right? But
Mhm.
anyways, the point is that the people that struggle, right, with that, like you said, it wasn't, they never changed their belief. Their belief is still the same. They're born that way, right?
Yeah,
That didn't change. It's still who they are. They're not aligned in their beliefs. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And then what I think is that's why you need support, and that's why you need the
yeah.
support system, and that's why you need
You need the
the
validation from
community.
other people.
Yeah,
Yes, you're doing the right thing. Keep going. Please, like don't give up. Don't give up on yourself. Keep going. You're doing the right thing. You're on the right track. Because so many people around them, we went through it. We had our own my own family was trying to talk me out of being vegan. They were trying to talk me into eating meat. Oh, come on. Everybody pressures you. Everybody's like putting you down and offending you and da da da. You got to be able to take it. You got to be able to stand strong.
yeah, 100%. And I think that is the part of the reason is some people aren't strong enough,
Yeah.
right? And so they do go back or they cave in or they want to please someone or they don't want to be ostracized from society or a family function or a birthday event or a dinner, right? There's all these things, that they feel like they want to. And then they're like, well, I'll just, I'll eat the vegan option, I'll eat the vegan junk food, I'll eat this, but whatever, right? And so there's all kinds of things that people struggle with and back and forth, but one thing that helps the most, or one of the things that helps the most with that is eating the right foods, getting all of your nutrition. You're not starving. You get the parasites out. You heal your gut. You
Yeah.
have full control over your cravings and your emotions and your actions, and then you bring all of the food with you, and then you don't have to worry about any of that stuff, and you
Yeah.
feel control. You could still go with your friends or with your things, and you bring the things with you. Bring your food with you, and then you also, what you do is you make an impact on other people, right? Because now
Absolutely.
you're like, yeah, I'm doing this for me. This is important. This is why I care. And they're like, wow, that person's really strong. Wow, that person's really brave. Wow, they're really courageous. Wow, they're going to do that even with everyone around them, and they're watching you, and seeing how you're going to react. And you're okay, like, and if you're strong in your values and you're strong in your ethics, you know what I mean, then you start impacting other people around you. And that's what people don't realize. You need to be, one of the best things I learned is you could go do activist, and I've done that. I've done every single thing you could possibly think about as an activist, right? You can go just shut down. I've shut down restaurants. I've shut down slaughterhouses. I've shut down everything you could think of. And what I found, the best thing you could do is be a good role model. Be the best person. Be the best version of you. Be the best you, and impact those around you. Is the best thing that you can do. I mean, I know that you make an impact, as a activist, and it's important to cause resistance, and all the resistance stuff matters, right? But you're not doing that every single day. You are yourself every single day. Be the best version of you every single day. Spend that time to be, because people are going to be attracted to you and like, oh, I want to live that lifestyle
Yeah.
because of them and because of you. If all they think of you is the person that screams and signs and shut down restaurants, they're going to say, I don't want that lifestyle. And then what happens?
Right.
You're in a way pushing away people from what you want them to happen. It's tough. It's a catch 22. The resistance needs to happen, and that stuff needs to happen, right? But that isn't an all the time thing, right? It
Right.
happens when it needs
Right.
to happen, but the rest of your life happens as it needs to happen, and you eat food. You're not eating food. When you protest, you eat a certain amount of food. But what are you eating during the protest? Every protest I seen was not health food. So now what
Right.
happens? You're not you're not fueling your body effectively, and then you're struggling. I've seen people like, I love animals, I want to care for animals. They're sick in bed. What can you do? how can you help them if you're sick in bed? What if
Helpless.
you healed yourself, took care of yourself, built up all kinds of wealth, and used your money to help animals and create sanctuaries and create law changes and create all this impact? You know what I mean? But you're helping people along the way. Like that, I don't know. That's just something that I think is seems ideal, and it's a way that you can go. And we can help you with that direction for those that want that direction. And it's also up to the individual too, because that's the other thing is do what you think everyone has skills and abilities and talents and different stories.
Yeah,
Someone that's an ex-hunter that shares that story, that's powerful, that
that
keep
is
that,
very
what I mean?
powerful.
There's lots of different levels in an athlete, Novak Djokovic, being the number one tennis player in the world, and he's plant-based. That's important, and that has power, and that has a value there, and people follow that. You know what I mean? But you don't have to be the number one tennis player in the world to make an impact. You can be just you as
Right.
yourself, and just help those around you. That's what you can do too. So I think there's just levels to like what you can do to help. And I think people pigeonhole is like, I can only do this to help. And if I'm not doing this, I'm not helping, and they struggle mentally. But my mindset is like, I'm always helping and I'm always making an impact all the time,
Every
whatever.
day, every
Yeah.
day, and we let people, see us, while we're living every day. Well, how does this person live every day, and how are they making an impact? We have to be able to be seen, for others to see, how we're living and everything. But yeah, definitely, saving the animals from slaughterhouses is one thing, but really, I think what I love about Purium is that you're trying to, how do you say, help people to transition over to healthy vegan foods. Like the juices, like right now I'm having my power shake. It's super simple every day, just very simple. It comes to your door. You just mix it with water, whatever you want.
I don't know if you got cut out. Can
Simple.
you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay.
What I say is you're a guide to helping people into a lifestyle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And those that are filming inside slaughterhouses are sharing the realities and the truth of what's going on. But you know what? They need to eat those foods too.
Yeah.
Those that are filming, they need to eat that food because that causes a lot of trauma, a
Yeah.
lot of damage in your body, and you need to heal. So you need
Yeah.
something really nutrient dense and really healing to heal you. Like you don't need to go eat Beyond Burgers after that because
Yeah, no,
not
right.
as healing. It's not as healing. You might need more healing because you're going through something more traumatic, right? And so like everyone needs that, and you're a
Everyone.
guide, and everyone people need to know why, and people need to know how,
Yeah.
right? And so the why and how together is more powerful. And there's to me there's, like I said, trillions of reasons to stop eating animals, and I don't think you have to have one. I think you should have more. I think adding more reasons is helpful to you because it makes it easier. Like I don't have to think about it. Like I saw someone says, "Oh man, it was too much work to be vegan," and I gave up. And I'm like, work? It just felt like
Not
alignment. I felt like it was
simplest
it was
thing.
a it was alignment, right?
Yeah. It's really, for me, it's the most simplest way to live. I mean, I drink my juices, have my smoothies, and stuff. And so it's simple, it's easy. There's really nothing to it, but it takes, I had to, retrain my mind. It's a transforming the mind, and so that's definitely, what most people I think struggle with nowadays. But if people want to make the transition, they will, and I think that people,
Really quick, that's important. If people want to make the transition, they will, and that's also important because then you help those that are ready.
yeah,
Okay, because people are focused on helping those that are not ready. It's okay if they're not ready, unfortunately. But if you spend time there, then you only have so much time in the day. If you spend all your time convincing people that are not ready, you run out of time. Now you spend this amount of time, right, or a different amount of time, portion of time, on helping those that are ready. It's different.
and it's draining. It's draining to try and help people that are not ready to transition over. Once you've made up your mind, your heart, your heart's in it. you know, like, okay, my heart's ready to make the transformation, the transition. And that's where I was, you know, back in 2013 when I made my transition to veganism. I'm like, okay, God, please, I know that, you know, I had to surrender. It was a process of surrendering everything I thought I knew, you know, so that God can renew my mind, renew my thoughts and my values and everything that I thought I knew. Because, you know, we go to school and all the, you know, the news and the TV, the radio, everything is brainwashing us in one way or another, you know, and so it's just like, just surrendering. It's a process of surrendering everything you thought you knew so that, you know, you can make that transition and really stick to it.
Absolutely. Well, let's wrap this up. This has been great. I appreciate you and anyone that's been listening. We didn't see the comments yet, but we'll look at the comments in a minute. And anyone that resonates with this and vibes with this and wants to connect with us, please reach out to me or Azaria, and we'll get you connected with the community, like-minded people. We'll get you eating healthy, and we'll get you feeling better and looking and performing better than you've ever felt. Right?
Absolutely.
And without harming animals. And I think that's a big factor.
Definitely the biggest, one of the biggest factors, you know, and you know, God rewards us, you know, for not harming animals. There's no harm done to us either. And so that's how I've been able to transform my mind, my body, my soul. And I really would love to hand this gift over to other people in the world.
Absolutely. Thank you so
Thank you,
much. Be
Kevin.
chatting soon.
Yes, thank you, brother. Love you.
Love you too.